The galaxy was a vast place, filled with many strange civilizations, peaceful ones and ruthless ones. For years, the universe had been living in a quiet kind of peace, a peace that many had grown to believe would last forever. But peace was never meant for everyone, especially when some races believed in conquering and destroying others. Far from Earth, in a distant star system, the Zarnak, a peaceful, weak race of aliens, were in great trouble. They were being invaded by the brutal Korak Empire, a ruthless force known for its destruction and power. The Zarnak had no defense against such a strong enemy. They were small, peaceful, and defenseless, and their world was being crushed under the weight of the Korak's might. In desperation, the Zarnak sent out a message, an SOS, hoping that someone, anyone, would hear their cries for help. But their message was weak, and their chances of survival were slim. The galaxy's many powerful factions ignored it, thinking the Zarnak were too insignificant to worry about. After all, who would risk entering the Korak Empire to save a helpless race? But what the Zarnak didn't know was that their plea for help would reach somewhere unexpected: Earth. On Earth, life had always been harsh, unpredictable, and dangerous. The people of Earth, known as humans, were called Deathworlders by others across the galaxy. They lived on a planet where survival was a constant battle against nature, predators, and even each other. Life was brutal, and only the strongest survived. This harshness had shaped the humans into a people with extraordinary strength, determination, and courage. When the SOS signal from the Zarnak reached Earth's deepest communications channels, it wasn't ignored. It wasn't brushed off as just another call for help from a weak alien race. The humans heard the message loud and clear, and they understood the desperation in the Zarnak's words. They knew what it meant to face certain death, to be trapped with no way out. They had faced the same challenges for centuries. A group of top-ranking military leaders and secretive government officials in charge of Earth's most dangerous weaponry gathered together to discuss the situation. The Deathworlder fleet, Earth's most powerful and deadly armada, stood ready in the shadows of space. These ships were massive, equipped with advanced weaponry, shields, and technology that could annihilate entire fleets in a matter of moments. No one had ever dared to use them before, as they were a last resort, a weapon of vengeance. But this time was different. The SOS from the Zarnak wasn't just a call for help. It was a call for justice. The message begged for mercy, for a chance to survive, and humanity could feel their pain. The Deathworlder fleet would answer, but not with kindness. The galaxy would soon learn the consequences of ignoring Earth. As Earth's leaders listened to the Zarnak's transmission, there was no hesitation. The decision was made quickly. The fleet would be deployed, and they would not stop until every Korak ship was destroyed. Every Korak soldier was punished for their cruelty. The Deathworlders did not show mercy. They brought wrath. On Earth, preparations began immediately. The Deathworlder fleet was activated. The ships, which had been dormant for years, now roared to life. Massive warships, filled with seasoned warriors who had fought countless battles, began their journey across the stars. These weren't just ordinary soldiers. The humans who fought in these ships had lived through unimaginable horrors, on a planet where danger lurked at every corner. Their training and battle instincts were unmatched. As the fleet powered up, the Zarnak's world continued to fall apart. The Korak Empire's warships attacked with no mercy, destroying everything in their path. The Zarnak's home was burning, their people were dying, and their hopes were fading fast. The message they had sent out had been their last act of desperation. But they didn't know yet. The humans were coming. The Deathworlder fleet was already on its way, and nothing would stop them. The Korak Empire would soon learn that the galaxy was no longer as safe as it had seemed. The humans, the Deathworlders, were about to make their mark on the universe in a way no one could forget. As the fleet made its way through the darkness of space, heading towards the Zarnak system, the commanders knew one thing: there would be no mercy, no surrender. The Korak Empire had made a grave mistake by threatening a peaceful race. Now they would pay the price for underestimating humanity. The message that had started as a simple SOS would soon become the spark that lit the flames of vengeance. And the universe would never forget what happened next. As the Deathworlder fleet made its way across the galaxy, the Korak Empire remained unaware of the storm that was about to hit them. Their forces were overwhelming, their ships vast and powerful. They believed that no one, not even the mightiest civilizations, could challenge them. They had conquered worlds, crushed entire races, and left nothing but ashes in their wake. The Zarnak were just another weak species to them, nothing more than a fleeting moment of resistance. But as the Korak ships prowled the space around the burning Zarnak homeworld, they didn't know that their very existence was about to be erased. Back on Earth, preparations were nearing completion. The Deathworlder fleet, the most powerful force humanity had ever built, was ready to strike. It was unlike any fleet in the galaxy. The ships were enormous, battle-hardened, and equipped with technology that made other ships look like toys. Each vessel was a fortress, designed to survive the harshest battles and deliver devastating firepower. Inside the command center of the fleet, the leaders of Earth's military stood silent. They knew the mission ahead of them would be brutal. The Korak Empire was no easy foe, but they had made one deadly mistake. They had underestimated humanity. The Deathworlder fleet wasn't just a military force. It was a message, a warning to any who would threaten the innocent. We won't just stop the invasion. Commander Harris, the leader of the fleet, said coldly. We'll make sure they know who they're dealing with. We will make them regret ever stepping foot on a planet they didn't own. The crew members around him nodded, their faces grim. The fleet had only one goal, to destroy the Korak Empire and show the galaxy the price of cruelty. As the fleet approached the Zarnak system, the first signs of battle became clear. The Korak Empire had fortified their position, but they had no idea the destruction that was about to unfold. The Deathworlder fleet dropped out of hyperspace with a roar that shook the stars themselves. Massive warships materialized out of the darkness, each one bristling with weapons that could tear apart an entire fleet in seconds. The first Korak scout ship spotted the fleet and immediately sent a warning to their commanders. A fleet, unknown origin, approaching. The scout reported, but it was too late. The Deathworlders had already locked onto their target. Before the scout could send another message, it was torn apart by a volley of plasma cannons. Engage all weapons, Harris ordered, his voice low and filled with resolve. Make sure they don't have a chance to escape. The Korak ships scrambled to respond, their massive warships turning to face the new threat. But they were outclassed. The Deathworlder fleet's advanced weapon systems obliterated their shields, turning the once mighty ships into fireballs in an instant. The battle was over before it had truly begun. The Korak Empire's forces had no chance against humanity's wrath. The Zarnak watched in awe as the Deathworlder fleet tore through the Korak's forces. The invading warships, which had been so cruel and powerful moments ago, were now nothing more than space debris. The Zarnak's cries for help had been answered, but the price was steep. The Deathworlders weren't here to negotiate or show mercy. They were here to annihilate. As the fleet advanced deeper into the system, the Korak forces began to fall back, realizing they were no match for the relentless humans. The Deathworlders pursued them without hesitation, determined to rid the galaxy of this menace. There was no mercy, no quarter given. The Korak Empire would learn that crossing humanity was a fatal mistake. The final confrontation loomed. The Korak Empire's flagship, a massive dreadnought, stood at the heart of the battle, surrounded by smaller warships trying to hold their ground. But even this flagship, which had once been considered indestructible, was now nothing more than a target. The Deathworlder fleet had a singular purpose, and that purpose was to ensure that the Korak Empire would never again threaten another race. As the Deathworlder fleet prepared for the final strike, the Zarnak, still reeling from the destruction of their world, watched in silence. They had never seen a force like this before, A force of such power, such unrelenting vengeance. The Deathworlders had not come to save them. They had come to end the Korak threat forever. And so, as the final battle began, humanity's wrath was unleashed in all its fury. The galaxy would never forget the price of underestimating the people of Earth. As the last remnants of the Korak fleet turned into debris, a wave of silence fell over the battlefield. The once bustling communications channels were now eerily quiet. The vastness of space, previously filled with the roar of battle, now felt almost peaceful. But it was a hollow peace, a quiet before the storm, for those who knew what came next. Commander Harris, standing aboard the flagship of humanity's Deathworlder fleet, stared out into the void. The stars shimmered in the distance, but his thoughts were far from tranquil. The battle had been won, but he knew the galaxy was still uncertain of humanity's true wrath. Even the Korak, with their monstrous empire, had underestimated the power that Earth's warriors could wield. "Send a message to the Council," Harris ordered, his voice sharp and filled with quiet authority. "Let them know that we are not just a force of rescue, but a force of reckoning." The communications officer, who had been working tirelessly at his console, looked up with a mix of awe and fear. "Aye, Commander." Message sent. Harris nodded, his mind focused on the larger picture. The Zarnak had been saved, but this was only one victory. There would be more battles, more forces that needed to understand just how dangerous humanity was when provoked. The fleet began to move away from the remnants of the Korak Empire. The survivors of the Korak were few, their once feared empire now reduced to ashes. But their destruction would be remembered. The message had been sent not just to the Korak, but to every species in the galaxy that had ever thought to challenge humanity. Back on the shattered surface of the Zarnak homeworld, the leaders of the Zarnak watched as the Deathworlder fleet moved away. Their city was in ruins, their people broken. But there was a strange sense of hope in the air. For the first time in generations, the Zarnak felt like they might be safe again. "We owe them everything," one Zarnak leader whispered, watching the fleet depart. Humanity's fleet was unstoppable. But even as they spoke in hushed tones of gratitude, a lingering fear remained. The Korak Empire had been a dominant force, feared by many. The galaxy had been their playground, their rule absolute. And yet, one call for help from the Zarnak had been enough to summon humanity's fury. It was a powerful reminder of how quickly the balance of power could shift. And humanity was not finished. "We should prepare ourselves," another Zarnak leader said, voice filled with cautious optimism. "They have only just begun." Back aboard the Deathworlder flagship, Harris knew his mission was far from over. The Korak had been defeated, but other threats loomed on the horizon. He could feel the weight of responsibility pressing on his shoulders. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again, but it was up to him and his fleet to ensure that humanity's name was not just known, but feared. Harris turned toward his tactical officer, a veteran of countless battles. "Prepare the fleet for departure. We're heading for the next system. There's always someone out there who thinks they can challenge us." The officer nodded, his face grim. "Understood, Commander." As the fleet made its way out of the Zarnak system, Harris couldn't help but feel a growing sense of resolve. Humanity had been underestimated for too long. And now, the galaxy would know better than to underestimate Earth's warriors. The Deathworlders weren't just coming for rescue. They were coming to remind the galaxy of one unbreakable truth: never mess with humanity. The stars, vast and endless, glimmered with untold possibilities, but Harris knew that from now on, every species in the galaxy would look up at those stars with a new sense of fear. The Deathworlder fleet had finished its mission, but there was no true rest for its soldiers. The silence of victory still lingered, but it was a silence filled with tension. The galaxy was on edge, unsure of what would come next after humanity's unexpected show of power. For the first time in centuries, a new player had arrived on the galactic stage, one that was unafraid to bring destruction to whoever stood in its way. Commander Harris stood at the head of the bridge of the flagship, his eyes fixed on the stars that stretched out before them. His crew was silent, their faces focused, some tired from the battle, others filled with uncertainty. The Zarnak had been saved, but what about the next species in need? What about those who might try to stop humanity's rise? "Sir, we've received messages from the Galactic Council," said the communications officer, his voice shaky. Harris turned toward the officer, his expression unreadable. "What do they say?" They want us to come to the council chambers. They want to discuss the recent events." Harris couldn't help but smile, though the expression didn't reach his eyes. "They want to discuss our actions, or they want to try to stop us from doing it again." The officer hesitated. "They haven't specified, sir." "Of course," Harris muttered. "The council always plays the diplomatic card when they're scared." He turned to face his crew. "Prepare the fleet. We're heading to the Galactic Council." It's time they understood just what they're dealing with. The crew scrambled into action. In the past, the Deathworlder fleet had been a powerful tool used only in extreme cases. Now it was humanity's greatest weapon. And Commander Harris wasn't about to let it be restrained by galactic politics. As the fleet entered hyperspace, the stars around them became blurred streaks of light. The long journey to the Galactic Council was underway. But the journey was not one of peace. Harris knew that once they arrived, the true challenge would begin. The council would not just sit idly by. They would question, they would challenge, and they would try to contain humanity's power. But Harris had already made up his mind. He was not going to allow them to do that. Back in the council chambers, tensions were already high. Representatives from various species sat in their seats, eyes flicking nervously to the large communication screens that showed the incoming Deathworlder fleet. The Korak Empire, the once feared tyrants of the galaxy, were now a pile of space debris, and the Zarnak were forever indebted to the humans. The council members had no choice but to acknowledge humanity's power. The question now was, what would they do with it? "I can't believe they've come this far," muttered one of the representatives, a tall, green-skinned alien from the planet Shura. "The Korak never stood a chance, and now they're heading straight for us." "The humans are a force to be reckoned with," another member, a reptilian species from Farron, responded. "But do we want them as allies, or do we try to rein them in?" A human representative, one of the few diplomats humanity had stationed within the council, sat quietly at the table. He had already heard the rumors, the fear that humanity's rise would shift the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Some species wanted to ally with them. Others wanted to crush them before they grew too strong. "We must be careful," the human diplomat said, his voice calm but firm. "Humanity is not a species to be controlled. We need to understand that before we do anything rash." But it wasn't just about controlling humanity. There were deeper fears that stretched back to ancient times. Humanity's reputation for unpredictability and savagery preceded them. The council knew that, and now they had to decide if they were willing to gamble with the lives of their citizens. Meanwhile, aboard the Deathworlder fleet, Harris gazed out at the swirling nebula of the distant council system. His mission had always been clear: protect humanity's interests and ensure that no one could ever dare to challenge them again. But now, as they approached the council, Harris knew that something was about to change. This meeting would set the stage for humanity's future in the galaxy, and no one could predict what the outcome would be. He looked at the stars ahead, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing on him. Humanity was no longer the underdog, no longer the quiet species hiding in the shadows. They had arrived, and the galaxy would have to adjust to their presence. The fleet entered the orbit of the Council's central world, and Harris took a deep breath. The silence on the bridge was broken by the soft beeping of the communications console. The Galactic Council had sent a message. "Commander Harris," the message began, "the Council is ready for your arrival. Please prepare to dock." The time had come. The Deathworlders had been called to action. Now, they would answer the Council's summons. But the question remained, how would humanity be received? The crew braced themselves for what was to come, knowing that this was only the beginning of their journey. As the Deathworlder fleet settled into the orbit of the Galactic Council's central world, a heavy silence swept over the fleet. The looming presence of the ships, massive and imposing, sent a clear message. Humanity had arrived, and they were here to stay. Commander Harris stood at the head of the bridge once more, eyes narrowed in concentration as the distant cityscape of the Council's capital world appeared on the view screen. "Initiating docking sequence," said the helm officer, breaking the silence. The ship's thrusters hummed as they aligned with the Council's docking stations, and the fleet began to slow, preparing for the final step in their journey. On the outside, the fleet appeared calm, disciplined, but inside, the tension was palpable. Every crew member knew the gravity of the situation. Humanity had already proven its strength by taking down the Korok Empire, but now they would have to prove their worth before the leaders of the galaxy. Harris knew the Council's response was uncertain. Some species, especially the weaker ones, would see humanity's fleet as a symbol of salvation. Others would view it as a threat, something to be feared. What worried him most, however, was the uncertainty of what the Council might decide. Would they accept humanity as an ally, or would they find a way to suppress this new power? He was deep in thought when the communications officer called out, "Commander, we've received a direct transmission from the Council. They want to meet you in person." Harris' fingers tightened on the railing. This was the moment of truth. The fate of humanity and its future among the stars would be decided in this very meeting. He turned toward the officer. "Patch me through." A hologram flickered to life in front of him, displaying the image of a tall, angular alien with large, glowing eyes. It was one of the Council's representatives, a member of the prestigious Xanth species. "Commander Harris," the Xanthi began, his voice cool and calculated, "we welcome you to the Galactic Council's homeworld. We expect your fleet to dock and your representatives to join us for a discussion on your recent actions." "Understood," Harris replied, keeping his voice steady. "We're here to ensure peace, but if it's war you're after, know this: humanity will fight to the end." The Xanthi did not flinch, but there was a brief flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. The Council had clearly underestimated humanity's resolve. Now, they would have to face the consequences of their arrogance. "Very well, Commander. The Council will await your arrival." With that, the transmission ended, and Harris turned toward his officers. "Prepare the team. We head to the Council chambers immediately." The walk to the Council chambers felt like an eternity. The vast corridors of the Council's capital world seemed endless, the walls adorned with holographic depictions of the galaxy's greatest civilizations. Yet, despite the grandeur, there was an undeniable tension in the air. The Council had invited humanity, but that invitation was laced with suspicion. The stakes were high, and no one knew what the outcome would be. The moment they arrived at the entrance to the Council chamber, the doors opened, revealing a circular room filled with representatives from every corner of the galaxy. The alien species present were diverse. Towering beings made of crystalline structures, sleek and silent aquatic species, and large insectoid creatures, all sitting in judgment. At the far end of the room, a large, imposing throne-like seat stood vacant. Harris knew it was reserved for the Council's leader, an ancient alien whose power was second only to the galaxy itself. His name was Oler, and his reputation was one of cold detachment. He was the one who held the true power over the galaxy. If anyone was going to decide humanity's fate, it would be him. Harris and his team stood at the center of the room, their presence undeniable, their eyes scanning the Council as they waited for Oler to make his entrance. The seconds stretched into minutes, and just as the tension became unbearable, Oler finally appeared. His form shimmered into existence at the far end of the chamber, his body cloaked in flowing robes of translucent energy. He was a being of immense age, his features almost completely devoid of expression. "Harris," Oler's voice echoed through the chamber, deep and reverberating. "You stand before the Galactic Council, at a crossroads that could change the course of our history. Harris stood tall, his gaze unwavering. I am here to offer peace, but we will not be subjugated. Humanity stands ready to defend itself, and to defend the galaxy from those who threaten its stability. Oler's eyes glowed brightly as he studied Harris. The other council members murmured among themselves, exchanging glances of concern. You speak of peace, Oler said slowly, but your fleet has already demonstrated a power that we have not seen in millennia. The destruction of the Korek Empire was impressive, but the question remains, Commander Harris, what will you do with that power? Will you seek domination, or will you seek cooperation? Harris knew the question was a test. He could feel the weight of it, the pressure to choose the right words. A wrong answer could lead to conflict, to war, something humanity was fully capable of, but would prefer to avoid. We will protect the galaxy, not control it, Harris said firmly. Our fleet is not for conquest, it is for peace, but we will not tolerate anyone who threatens our people or our allies. Oler's gaze softened, just slightly, but the tension in the room remained thick. Then let us see if your actions will match your words. The future of your species, and the galaxy, rests on this meeting. The council members nodded solemnly, and the doors to the chamber closed behind them. The silence in the room was almost deafening. Commander Harris stood tall, his gaze unwavering, as the council members deliberated. Every alien species represented in the room had their own interests, their own agendas, and now humanity's place in the galaxy was on the line. He knew that whatever decision they reached, it would affect the course of history. The tension was thick enough to be cut with a knife. Oler, the leader of the Galactic Council, had remained silent for what seemed like an eternity, his eyes locked on Harris. The older alien's face was an emotionless mask, but the air around him crackled with the weight of his power. There was no mistaking it. This being held the future of the galaxy in his hands. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Oler spoke. Humanity, you have proven your strength, your resolve, he began, his voice low and deliberate. Your fleet is not just a symbol of destruction, it is a symbol of survival. And now we face a choice that could either strengthen or shatter the fragile peace that binds the galaxy together. Harris' heart skipped a beat. The weight of Oler's words wasn't lost on him. This was no longer about proving humanity's strength. It was about whether they could coexist with the galaxy, or if they would be forced to take matters into their own hands. You have brought peace to many worlds, but you have also shown the capacity for unimaginable wrath. The question before us is simple, Oler continued, his glowing eyes narrowing. Can humanity coexist with the rest of the galaxy, or will your power overshadow all others, demanding control? The room fell silent again. The council members exchanged looks, some skeptical, some nervous, others intrigued. Harris knew that whatever answer he gave now would decide the fate of humanity in the galaxy. He stepped forward, his voice strong and clear. We do not seek control. We seek justice and safety, not just for ourselves, but for those who cannot protect themselves, Harris said. Humanity stands ready to protect the galaxy from any threat. We are not here to dominate, but to defend those who cannot defend themselves. The galaxy will either stand together or fall apart, and if we must fight to preserve peace, then we will fight. But we will never seek to rule. The room remained tense as Oler considered the words. The council's murmurs quieted, and all eyes were on the leader. After a long pause, Oler finally spoke again, his voice resonating throughout the room. Your words are bold, Commander Harris, and your actions have shown that humanity is not to be underestimated, he said. You have passed the test. We will allow humanity to join the Galactic Council as a full member, not as a conqueror, but as an ally. Your fleet will be an important part of our collective defense. Harris's breath caught in his throat. The Council had agreed. Humanity was no longer a fringe species, an outcast. They were now part of the greater galactic community. The future of Earth and its people had just been secured, but Harris knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, and humanity would have to continue proving its place within it. However, Oler continued, his voice turning grave, "Your actions will be watched closely. The galaxy's peace is fragile, and your fleet must be a symbol of strength and protection, not one of fear and destruction. We trust you to honor your word, Commander Harris, or face the consequences." Harris nodded firmly, understanding the weight of the warning. The galaxy would not allow humanity to act recklessly, but they had proven themselves worthy of trust. The Deathworlder fleet, with its unmatched power, would stand as both a protector and a reminder of the consequences of underestimating Earth. As the council members began to stand and exit the chamber, Harris turned to his crew. His face remained calm, but inside, he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and relief. Humanity had earned its place in the galaxy. They were no longer just a small, isolated species on a lonely planet. They were part of something much larger. But as he left the chamber, one thought lingered in his mind. The galaxy was full of dangers, both known and unknown. Humanity's journey was far from over. The Deathworlder fleet had proven its might, but now it would have to navigate the complex political landscape of the galaxy. And if the galaxy threatened peace, Harris knew that humanity would be ready to defend it, no matter the cost.